the smallest thing which can't be. So Muslim thinkers of the school of Ash'ari did not believe in the infinite divisibility of space. And so let's first talk a bit about what Muslim thinkers they mean and what a school mean and what a Al-Ash'ari school means in the context of Islam. Tradition, because not many people clearly understand the meaning of these terms, or these terms, I guess. So when we say Muslim thinkers, that's obviously not a correct terminology because it's too general, too generic. What we should, we can say Muslim thinkers means Muslim scholars. They are Muslim scholars. Okay, but here we are talking about, so Muslim scholars, they are invariably scholars in the sense of they're scholars of, they're multidisciplinary scholars. There's no, so they might be specialists, but that is specialization doesn't mean narrowness or limiting oneself to a particular discipline at the expense of other disciplines. So they're Muslim scholars. They are schooled in a curriculum which is encyclopedic. So they study different Islamic disciplines, and the disciplines which are instrumental in understanding those disciplines. And also, as Muslim scholars, you need to understand the reality, because without understanding the reality, whether it's a social reality or natural reality, you can't implement or you can't apply Islamic teachings to a particular occurrence, whether that particular event with a particular occurrence, a particular event within a social world or a natural world. So that's important. So there are three things here. So there are three things which a Muslim scholar, three types of knowledges, three types of information. The Muslim first is nusus, the knowledge of nusus is text. Quran, Sunnah, which include Asar Sahaba wa Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, and Ijma, because they are all Hujjah. And Ijma is the most important because it's in the light of the Ijma. So that's history, Islamic history, and tradition and continuity, etc., within which you situate any legitimate innovation. So that's the first thing. So you need to know nusus. You need to know instrumental disciplines like language, rhetoric, logic, philosophy, etc. And that would include the knowledge of contemporary human disciplines, be they natural discipline focus on natural discipline, the natural world or social world. And number three is what was number three? Reality. They need to understand the reality, social world around them. But reality changes. So that's what you mean by ijtihad. Unless you, so the same nusus, the application changes according to the new reality, to whether that's reality, the natural reality or social reality. And your understanding of the nusus also changes based on your understanding of the reality. So this is a Muslim scholar. Now they can have the different focus, but you need to know some. You need to know the basics of all these three aspects of human knowledge and disciplines in order for you to be called a Muslim scholar. Okay. Now, once we have understood this, when he talks about Muslim thinkers, he might be talk about Muslim philosophers, those scholars who study philosophy in a more specific and concerted way. Otherwise, every Muslim scholar since philosophy was introduced to the Islamic world has to study some sort of philosophy, unless he has the basic knowledge of philosophy and its terminology, he will not be able to understand even Islamic texts which deal with issues which involve those disciplines. Or you can mean al-mutakallimin. And al-mutakallim obviously needs to be a philosopher, need to study philosophy, but al-mutakallimism is more than philosophy in the sense that the purpose of ilm al-kalam, with all its different schools, is manifold. First instance, it is depending on your definition of kalam. So, for example, a positive aspect of ilm al-kalam is to independently justify or ground truth of Islamic, fundamental Islamic creed or dogma in some sort of al-aql or reason. Obviously, a reason is a particular conception of al-aql, but I'm using it just to give you an idea. Intellect, maybe not reason, because reason is a specific type of or a specific understanding of rationality or intellect or al-aql. So, for example, a mutakallim in a sense brackets belief in God and first establish that God exists. Brackets the belief that the Prophet is the true Prophet and establish independently the high probability of Prophet being the true Prophet. And once he has done that, then he earns as a mutakallim a right to use a vast array of intellectual instruments to justify the rest of Islamic creed. That's one thing. This is a positive aspect. And the second thing is to defend Islam rationally, intellectually, against internal doubts and external intellectual objections against Islam. And in order to do that, obviously, you need to understand opposite views, philosophical, non-philosophical, depending on which change according to time. So, ilm al-kalam is a vast disciplines. And then there are schools. By school, we mean just like universities, historical schools, like positivists and rationalists and empiricists. These type of schools they are. They're not schools in the sense of religious sects. But the schools, Ashari is a school, Mu'tazila is a school of Muslim thinkers, Hanbali is a school of Muslim mutakallimin. They are the three big ones, but then within them there are schools. So this school doesn't mean that there's a the school in a university. It doesn't mean that every positivist has the same views about the same thing. They have some general similarities, but within the similarity there is diversity of view, etc. So Ashari is a big school, and within this school there are many schools and many different scholars, and the variation is horizontally as well as vertically, like historically as well as space and time. And that's the same for any schools in other Islamic disciplines. So for Maliki school is a school of fiqh, but within Maliki school there are at least 5 sub-schools. Not all of them are well and alive. We might be well and alive throughout the history. Some might, become more popular, more prominent, more. And some others might extinct, might decline. But no one is left which adhere to that school among scholars, for example. But these schools, they are ways of dealing with or methodologies, different methodologies to deal with the same sort of issues. That's what they call school. And within a school, there are variety, there's diversity. Okay, so that's important as well. So when we attribute something to Ashari school, there might be a lot of different views about that. So that attribution might apply to certain Ashari scholars or certain Ashari views at certain point in history. Okay, and in this sense, Kalam is also not equivalent to Islamic creed, because Kalam is a way to defend Islamic creed. But we will talk about this way to Islam. So there's one creed, but philosophically you can understand this creed and defend it, and think, depending on your philosophical position, you might think that an independent space is necessary for example, belief in God. But that belief in independent schools can't be at the same level as the belief in one God, for example, because this connection you just made up, it's a human connection. It can be wrong. And depending on changing your philosophical method, position, opinion, you might think that independent space is not needed for belief in God, for example. I mean, I've just made up this example, but we will take up this important point in the next reading, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. وصل وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. وربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.